quote, individuals striving to achieve such a physique. Today, however, a diverse population joins the health club. We have the senior citizens working out now in the gyms. We have people that have been discharged from physical therapy and they need a competent instructor to be able to handle the injuries that they sustain so they don't get re-injured. Athletes and many people that need to lose weight are joining the gyms today. These people generally do not have the desire to attain huge muscles, but on the other hand, they do want to improve their health. They want to be pain-free. They want to improve their balance. They want to improve their core stability. And they want to improve their stamina as well as lose weight. And also they want an instructor that can encourage good posture. Granted, there are those individuals that still want to go to the extreme and attain gigantic muscles like we've seen in the beginning of the show. And that's okay. But the majority of people that, at least in my opinion, in the gyms that I've been involved in, that is not the norm as it was back in the 60s and the 70s. We're going to switch gears here and get academic for a little bit, and actually I'm going to read off of this PowerPoint type slide presentation, so bear with me here. The topic, as we discussed earlier in the show, is the evolution of personal training. And I just want to read through this little slide here. The concept of personal training started in the form of mail order programming from Charles Atlas. I think everybody's heard of Charles Atlas. I think I actually bought his course back in the 70s, but he came out in the 1920s with that course, that mail order course. And as I alluded to earlier, training consisted of lifting heavy weights and building muscle mass, which many believe Atlas, Angelo Siciliana, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, paved the way to this type of training. Then who could forget the famous Jack LaLanne in 1951, and the Jack LaLanne Show began and lasted 34 years. I wasn't aware of that until I did some research. This show was a form of personal training in the format of television. Incidentally, Jack LaLanne invented the famous Smith machine, which I think most gym rats are familiar with and use often in the gym. The emphasis was still on targeting and firming individual muscles. It's important to note that I like to underline firming and individual muscles here. Isolating muscles. That's one thing I want to keep in the back of your mind, because I'm going to talk about that more in detail later. And by the early 1980s, gym memberships were skyrocketing. Most people joining a gym were uneducated about training and needed the guidance of an quote-unquote expert. The expert was usually the individual that was the strongest and had been training the longest. I do remember that back in the late 70s. The person that I was actually training under was real huge, had real no education. He actually got convicted of something, and he went to jail later on. I won't mention the town or the place or the person. The birth of the personal trainer had begun. The qualifications of these individuals were not what they are now. There were no certifications required at that time. Just want to say before I start the slide, I did learn a lot from this individual about training and about getting bigger and getting stronger. So for the most part, these individuals were able to provide good information on acute variables such as loads or weights, the sets and the reps, or how many times you do it, etc. It was not a usual practice, however, to assess this new client for genetic differences, muscle imbalances, previous injuries, occupation, and goals. When I worked at my first health club back in '84. It was a small club. All we did was take him through a universal type gym, and there was no real mention about, and there was no real assessment at the time, and it was very, very just basic. And I remember taking one person before I had my formal education. He was on what they call a beta blocker, this person, and which is a drug for blood pressure, regulating blood pressure, and it can lower heart rate. So I have him running around the gym, and I was wondering why his heart rate was so low, until afterwards I realized that he was on a beta blocker. But those things